I took a deep breath outside Aunt Layla's mansion. The gate loomed like it had teeth, and I felt every inch of myself shrink. My hands trembled, my chest tight. Okay, just ask, I whispered, like saying it out loud would make it real. The door swung open before I could knock. Lila, always Lila, sharp heels clicking against marble. She looked at me, eyebrow arched. You're early, she said, voice smooth but cold. I, I wanted to talk to you, I said, swallowing hard, about some help. She laughed, a short, sharp bark. I froze. What kind of help? She asked, amused. I've been struggling, I started, voice breaking. Financially, work is instead going well. I thought maybe you could. She cut me off, hand on her hip. You? Ask me for help? Her laugh cut deeper this time, like a whip. Oh darling, you are not cut out for this. I felt it, my chest tightening, heat crawling up my neck. I just thought, my words died in my throat. You thought wrong, she said, smile sharp, teeth glinting. Some people are meant to succeed. Some are meant to flounder. It stups not personal. It stups just fact. Her words burned. My stomach knotted. I wanted to vanish. I see, I whispered, voice small. She turned back to her crystal decanter, pouring herself something, already done with me. I felt naked, exposed, humiliated. I left without another word, each step heavy, echoing in the marble hall like a funeral march for my pride. Outside I hugged my coat tighter, the cold biting, but it didn't touch the fire that had ignited inside me. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking. I sat on the edge of my bed, replaying it, her laugh, that dismissive tilt of her head. You are not cut out for this. I closed my eyes. Why does it hurt so much? I asked myself. Because it stirs true. No, not true. Not yet, not for me. I clutched my pillow and let the shame wash over me, and underneath it something else stirred. Quiet at first, a spark. Show her. The thought was bitter, but it tasted like fire in my veins. I could see it already, me not begging, me winning, me sitting at the table while she eats her words. I sat there all night, silent, angry, planning in the quiet, every detail of her laughter replayed in my head. Each sharp syllable became a blueprint, a roadmap. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't tell anyone, I just felt the hunger deep, precise, unrelenting, and somewhere in the quiet of my room, I smiled. One day, the tables will turn. And when they do, she once see it coming. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't check messages. I barely ate. I just sat in my room staring at the ceiling, letting the silence wrap around me like a shroud. I could still hear her laugh. Sharp, cruel, echoing, you are not cut out for this. It burned through my mind, over and over. I pressed my palms against my face. Why does it hurt so much? I whispered to the empty room. A knock at the door. My mother, soft, careful. Can I come in? I didn't move. I know it stings, she said, voice gentle. But Sep's family don't take it personally. I laughed. Bitter, hollow. Don't take it personally? Mom? She laughed at me. Laughed. She didn't mean. No, she meant every word. I snapped. My voice cracked. Every syllable dripped with it. I asked for help, and she humiliated me. Silence. I could feel her hesitation, the unspoken words. She wanted to soothe me, to make it better. But some things you can't soothe. You need to let it go, she said finally. Let it go? I scoffed, rising to my feet. Mom, this isn't just a little insult. It's everything I been working for. And I clenched my fists. She crushed me. She reached out, I didn't take her hand, couldn't. You'll figure it out, she said softly. You always do. I slammed the door behind her. My chest heaved. Later, Sarah came over, best friend, lifeline, sometimes the only person who knew the real me. Hey, she said, plopping onto my bed. You've been ghosting everyone. What's going on? I let out a shaky breath. Aunt Layla, she laughed at me, told me I not cut out for this. Sarah Sip's eyes widened. What? No, she can She did, I said, voice low, almost broken. And it hurts, Sarah. I feel worthless. Sarah grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight. You said you're not worthless. You said you're the opposite. You said you're you, smart, driven, stubborn as hell. She said you're jealous. That septure's all it is. Jealous, I muttered, more to myself than to her. No, she seps cruel, that seps it. She doesn't seps care about me at all, never has. Sarah frowned. Maybe, but you can set let her get to you, not like this. Don't set give her that power. I don't set no, I admitted, feeling the raw ache in my chest. I just keep replaying it. Her laugh, every inflection, every little pause, like she seps carving it into my skin. Sarah didn't speak. She just let me breathe. Let me feel it. I asked for help, Sarah. Just a little help, and she made me feel like I didn't step belong anywhere, like I stepped nothing. You said you're not nothing, she said firmly. But maybe she needs to see that, huh? I looked at her. Her eyes full of fire. Unshakable faith in me made something shift inside. A spark, tiny but stubborn. You mean revenge? I asked, half laughing, half shocked at my own words. Sarah shrugged, smirk tugging at her lips. Call it what you want, but if she thinks she can belittle you publicly, maybe it steps time you outmaneuver her privately. Outmaneuver her, the words hit me like a pulse in my veins. I sat up straighter, eyes burning. Yes, I whispered. Yes, maybe I can. Maybe I will. Sarah grinned. That seps the spirit. Not all battles are fought with fists. Some are fought with brains, patience, strategy. And you? You've got both. I swallowed. My hands stopped shaking. My chest still ached, but it was different now. Less raw, more focused. You know, I said slowly, I used to doubt myself. After today, I still do. But now, I think I might be learning something. Maybe this isn't set just about her laughing at me. Maybe it sets about what I do next. Sarah nodded. Exactly. Turn the hurt into fuel. Let it push you. Don't let her define you. Let her underestimate you. That seps the sweetest revenge. I leaned back against my pillow, closing my eyes. For the first time since that day, I let myself imagine it, her surprised face, her smug smile crumbling, my quiet triumph. It was intoxicating, dangerous, perfect. The betrayal still hurt, sharp and gnawing, but now it had a shape, a direction. A plan. I whispered into the quiet room, almost to myself. If she can belittle me in public, maybe I can outmaneuver her in private. Maybe, I am not the one who seps powerless. Sarah reached over and gave my shoulder a squeeze. You stir not never were. I stared at the ceiling, mind racing, plotting, burning. Every memory of her laughter became a piece of the puzzle. Every word, every smirk, every dismissive glance. It was ammunition. The night stretched on. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't cry. I just thought, calculated, planned. By the time dawn crept in through the blinds, something had shifted. The ache in my chest was still there, but underneath it, a fire had been lit. Quiet, steady, and it would not go out. I was no longer just hurt. I was ready. And one day she would regret underestimating me. I couldn't stop thinking about her laugh. The memory clung to me like a shadow, but the anger had shifted. Sharp edges softened into something else. Curiosity, strategy. I started watching, listening, not openly, silently. Every family dinner, every gathering I observed. The perfect mansion, the perfect image, the perfect Aunt Layla, or so everyone thought. And then, cracks. Uncle Haroon had always been careful. Reserved, never spoke when Layla was around. But that night, he tipped his hand without even knowing. I just don't understand her obsession with those auctions, he muttered under his breath, adjusting his cufflinks, thinking no one was listening. I froze. Auctions? I asked, voice casual, heart hammering. He jumped, startled. I mean, you know she likes showing off the family heirlooms. Rare pieces, public attention. The whole scene, it sops, she sops. I nodded slowly, pretending indifference, but inside I was electric. Obsessed how? I pressed. Well, she likes to make a spectacle. Make sure everyone sees it. She thrives on the approval, I guess. The envy. It seeps unhealthy. I could feel it. This was the lever I'd been searching for. Something tangible, something fragile in her perfect facade. Envy, huh? I murmured, almost to myself. Yes, she loves it. She needs it. Honestly, it sups alarming. Uncle Haroon didn't notice my sudden attention. She sups always chasing attention. The more public the better, doesn't it care who she offends? I smiled, carefully, a small dangerous curl of lips. My pulse quickened. What if someone were to challenge that? I asked softly. He blinked. Challenge it? How? I shrugged, acting nonchalant, though my mind raced, just hypothetically. If someone knew how much it meant to her, maybe they could shake her confidence. Haroon Sup's frown deepened. I don't no. It seps delicate. She wouldn't take kindly to anyone meddling. Exactly, I whispered, and in that word I heard the seed of power taking root. I left that night with my mind spinning. The auctions, her obsession, her public image. There was leverage there, vulnerability where I had only assumed invincibility. For the first time, I saw a way to claw back some control, to make her feel even a fraction, the humiliation she had hurled at me. The next days were a blur of quiet research. I listened to every offhand comment, noticed every pattern, her friends, her colleagues, even the staff, they all spoke in hushed tones about the auctions. How she flaunted the rarest items, how she loved to see reactions, how she thrived on it. I smiled to myself in the privacy of my room. So this is it, I whispered. This is where the leverage is. The thought thrilled me. Dangerous, intoxicating. I could almost taste it, the shift of power, the subtle tension building before the storm. I replayed my humiliation that day at her mansion. Every sharp word, every laugh. And then I imagined her, for the first time, feeling it. A sliver of doubt, a flicker of discomfort. I shook my head slightly, letting the anticipation sink in. It was still early. I had to be patient, silent, observant, calculated. But now, the hunt had a target, a direction. I saw Uncle Haroon again a few days later. He smiled politely, unaware of the storm brewing behind my calm exterior. I've been thinking about what you said. I started casually, about the auctions. Oh, he replied, cautious. I mean, if she's so obsessed with them, it must be a lot of pressure, right, to always be the center of attention. He hesitated, then nodded. Yes, it's exhausting for some of us around her, but she thrives on it. Can take it away. It sets her identity. I nodded, hiding the thrill. Identity. Haroon looked at me, puzzled. What are you planning? I smiled faintly. Nothing. Just thinking. But inside my mind raced. Pieces clicking together, a path forming. A plan that could turn her obsession into a weapon she didn't see coming. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't in weeks. Cautious optimism. The anger hadn't disappeared, but it was refined now. Focused. Strategic. I whispered into the darkness, almost to myself. If her power comes from the spotlight, maybe it's just time someone dimmed it. Quietly, slowly, carefully. And with that thought, sleep finally came. Restless, light, but filled with purpose. For the first time since that fateful day at her mansion, I felt a pulse of control, a flicker of power. And the auctions, they would be the key. I met Imran at a quiet cafe, tucked in a corner where no one could overhear. He was already there, scanning a tablet, coffee untouched, sharp eyes, sharp mind, just the person I needed. Finally, he said without looking up. I was beginning to think you chicken out. I didn't I said, voice steady, but inside my pulse was a drum. I need your help, Lila. She humiliated me. Publicly. He glanced up, eyebrow raised. Oh, this is personal then. I like that. Yes, I said, leaning in. I want to learn everything. Auctions, influence, manipulation, how she operates. I want to understand the game before I play it. Imran smiled. Ambition suits you, but be warned. These circles are sharks in suits. One misstep and you separ dinner. I can handle it, I said, trying to convince myself as much as him. He leaned back, thoughtful. First lesson language. You don't set ask, you don't set beg, you observe, you suggest, you guide, influence without touching, make them think it sets their idea. I nodded. Scribbling notes in a notebook I sighed started carrying everywhere. Observe, suggest, guide, influence without touching. Good. Second lesson, networks, he continued. High-profile auctions are about connections, appearances, whispers, who knows whom, who owes favors, who steps looking for leverage. You step to learn to read the room, even before you enter it. I repeated the words quietly. Read the room, know the players, leverage. My fingers clenched around the pen. And patience, he said, eyes locking on mine. This is instead instant. You still be tested. Your ego, your temper, your pride. All of it. One wrong move, and poof, you start back at square one. I swallowed. Patience had never been my strong suit, but I nodded. I can learn. We spent hours like that, dissecting scenarios, practicing conversations, rehearsing subtle manipulations. Imran played her role, I countered. Sharp words, subtle feints, hidden meanings. Each time, I stumbled a little. Each time, I adjusted. You rushed there, he said, pointing at my scribbled line. She would smell the eagerness. Slow down. Let her underestimate you. Always. I bit back a frustrated sigh. I hate waiting. Good, he said, smiling. That hatred will sharpen you. Channel it. By the end of the first week, I had a new rhythm. Notes stacked neatly, strategies rehearsed, mental scenarios mapped. I envisioned the moment she realized I'd changed, from hurt, small, insignificant, to deliberate, calculated, dangerous. What if she notices me learning? I asked, voice low. Imran shook his head. Let her think it steps nothing. The less she suspects, the more impact later. You want her off balance, not paranoid. I nodded slowly, imagining her pride, her smirk, shattered by quiet, precise moves she wouldn't see coming. The next lessons were about subtle manipulation, reading her emails, her social cues, the way she interacted with collectors, her obsession with public approval, her reliance on favors, her impatience when things didn't go her way. Every small crack became a thread I could pull. One slip, one doubt, and you can nudge her. Quietly, without anyone else noticing, Imran said, leaning over a map of connections he kept drawn. Timing is everything. I traced the lines with my finger, memorizing them. Timing, control, observation. I muttered the words like a mantra. Exactly. You stir no longer just reacting. You stir planning. Every step counts. Every glance, every word, every smile can be a tool. I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in weeks. Power, focus, the raw, intoxicating sense that I was no longer victim. I was strategist, hunter. But Emran didn't let me get too comfortable. Control your temper, he said. Never let anger guide a move. The moment you act from rage, you lose. I exhaled slowly. Patience, control, these weren't natural to me, but the fire inside, the quiet rage, wasn't going away. I would channel it. For days I practiced in solitude. I whispered scenarios into my reflection. What if she flaunts the heirloom again? What if she mocks me subtly at the gala? How do I turn it back, quietly, without anyone knowing? Every question sharpened my mind. Every rehearsal built confidence. My hands trembled sometimes, but it was different from fear. It was anticipation. I imagine the final scene, the moment she realizes I've taken her seriously, the calculated humiliation mirrored back at her. I pictured her pause, her blink, the subtle falter in her otherwise perfect composure. It was almost poetic. By the end of the second week, I wasn't just hurt anymore. I wasn't just angry. I was methodical, patient, and ready. Imran clapped me on the shoulder one night. You sure different. I see it, but remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep the fire quiet, let it build. I nodded. I will. Walking home, notebook in hand, I felt the transformation. Each step lighter, each thought sharper. The hurt was still there, yes, but it had evolved into strategy, into focus, into power. And one day, Aunt Lila would see it. That fire, that control, that I wasn't just someone to dismiss. I whispered into the night, almost like a promise. I stem ready, and you will regret ever laughing at me. I walked into the ballroom, letting the crystal chandeliers blind me for a moment. The soft clink of glasses, low hum of conversation. It was her world, Layla's world. And now, quietly, it was mine to navigate. I smiled at a passing socialite. Delighted to see you again, I said, voice smooth, controlled. She blinked, a flicker of recognition. Ah, you sut, ambitious. Always, I replied, and it was true in more ways than she could imagine. From the corner, I spotted Fahad, cousin, her rival, big mouth, bigger ego, every word he spoke was a challenge, a weakness I could exploit. I approached him carefully. Fahad, I didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I, he said, smirk curling. Still trying to play in the big leagues? I laughed softly, letting it sound effortless. Big leagues take bigger risks, don't they? He raised an eyebrow. Careful, you step trading close to territory that doesn't belong to you. Maybe, I said, leaning in, lowering my voice. Or maybe it's some time for some realignment. His smirk faltered. Not much, but enough. I drifted through the crowd, shaking hands, nodding politely, all the while observing every whispered conversation, every hint of envy or fear. I was learning the currents, the undercurrents. Then I found Miss Khan, the auction house director. Sharp, professional, unaware of the games that churned beneath her polished exterior. Miss Khan, I said, offering my hand. It steps an honor, your reputation precedes you. She smiled politely, firm handshake. Thank you, you star new to these circles, aren't you? Fresh perspective, I said. I find it advantageous. She laughed lightly. That sip's one way to put it. We talked briefly, small talk laced with probing questions. Her schedule, her priorities, her contacts. I let her think she was mentoring me while I soaked up information, who mattered, who could be influenced, who carried grudges. Auctions are delicate, she said, voice low. One misstep, one wrong connection, and it all collapses. But you seem sharp, careful. I appreciate that, I said, hiding my thrill. Careful has served me well. I left her with a smile, but inside, my mind raced. She was an ally, unwitting, but powerful. Over the next days, I floated in and out of gatherings, each interaction a calculated move. I whispered compliments where they would sting, smiled where it would disarm. Slowly the network began to recognize me. Some as an up-and-comer, others as a curious observer, all useful. Fahad remained my favorite challenge. He underestimated me. I fed him small pieces of information, letting him miscalculate, nudging his arrogance into mistakes he didn't see coming. You seem everywhere, he remarked one evening, narrowing his eyes. I like to stay informed, I said smoothly. Opportunities only appear to those paying attention. He nodded, slightly unsettled, though he hid it with a laugh. Careful? Or you still step on the wrong toes? Perhaps, I said softly, but sometimes the wrong toes belong to the right people. I could see it, the gears turning in his mind, exactly where I wanted him. With each passing day, I stitched the network tighter. Miss Khan unknowingly provided insight. Fahad stumbled subtly, a pawn in a game he didn't know existed. And I, calm, observant, patient, was the hand holding the threads. The thrill hit me unexpectedly, not the anger from the mansion, not the bitterness I had carried in silence. No, it was power, control, the intoxicating realization that I could influence, manipulate, and maneuver without her ever seeing it coming. At one gala, I cornered Miss Khan again. Casually, I was thinking about the upcoming auctions. Their steps one piece, very rare. It could shift a lot of attention. She glanced at me, curious. Really? And who would benefit? I smiled faintly. Depends who sees it first. She laughed softly. I like your style. Careful but daring. I left her with that, letting the seed take root. Later, watching Lila move through the room, flawless and oblivious, I felt a pulse in my veins. Every connection I had made, every subtle move, every whispered word, all building, slowly, silently. The first thrill of vindication coursed through me. Not open, not loud, just beneath the surface, quiet and dangerous. By the end of the evening, I was exhausted but exhilarated. Notebook in hand, notes filled with observations, alliances, and potential manipulations, every interaction mapped, every thread recorded. I whispered to myself as I walked to my car, The pieces are falling into place. The network is mine, even if they don't set know it, and she will never see it coming. I touched the notebook, fingers lingering over the words, the plans, the subtle threats, the potential victories. Tonight was not victory, but it was power, and power tasted like fire. I smiled faintly in the darkness, knowing the next moves would define everything. And for the first time I felt truly dangerous. The day of the auction arrived with a storm in my chest I could hardly control. I watched from the corner of the estate's sprawling foyer as Aunt Lala moved through the room, flawless as ever, heels clicking against marble like a metronome of her confidence. She was radiant, poised, untouchable, and utterly oblivious to the storm I had quietly constructed around her. "Darling, everything must be perfect," she said, voice melodic, tilting her head as she examined the display of rare heirlooms. "Of course," I murmured, a polite smile curling my lips, but inside my pulse was a drum. "You look tense," she added, brushing past me, smelling of jasmine and arrogance. "Are you nervous? Auctions can be exhausting for some." I laughed softly, a little but exciting too. "Dawn set, you think?" She glanced at me, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Exciting? Well, I suppose for those who can actually play the game." Her words stung, but the burn was different now, focused, refined. I let it slide, a smirk hiding the fire building in my chest. I drifted through the gathering, letting conversations flow like chess pieces across a board. Every smile, every compliment, every passing glance was measured. Every word I spoke had a shadow behind it. Fakad was already there, smirking like he owned the room. I approached him casually. "Fakad?" I said, voice low, playful. "You start early, looking to impress Aunt Layla." "Impress? Me?" he scoffed. "I don't set need to impress. She already knows who Sep's ambitious, who Sep's capable." "Of course," I said lightly, "but even the capable can stumble, if they are distracted." His eyes narrowed, though he masked it with a laugh. "You sound dangerously observant." "Perhaps," I whispered, letting the words linger, "but that Sep's only if you look closely." I let him stew, moving on to small clusters of collectors and socialites, planting subtle rumors, hints about rival bids, suggestions of rare finds. A minor slip here, a fleeting comment there, each one calculated to seed doubt without drawing attention to myself. I watched Lyle laugh at a minor inconvenience, an envelope misplaced, a display slightly off-center. Her smile was flawless, but I could almost see the flicker of irritation beneath it. "Patience is everything," I whispered under my breath, noting every small crack. She had always thrived on control. Now each tiny disturbance was a thread I could pull. I found Miss Khan near the main stage, clipboard in hand, meticulously checking the catalog. "Everything in order?" I asked. "Casual." "Almost," she replied. "A few pieces need repositioning, but nothing serious." I smiled lightly. Even the smallest detail matters, especially when someone's SIP's reputation depends on perfection. Her brow furrowed slightly. Indeed, attention to detail, critical. Exactly what I wanted her to think. That attention could slip, that perfection could falter. Throughout the morning, I tested Aunt Lila, planting subtle misinformation. A rumored collector interested in a piece she coveted. A whispered conversation about a potential late bid. Nothing overt, nothing she could pin on me, but enough to create a current beneath the surface. A tension she couldn't quite name. "You're unusually quiet today," she said, sweeping past me again, eyes sharp. "I like to watch," I said softly. "Learn from the best." She laughed, elegant, oblivious. "Flattery one sit save you. But, it sits amusing." And there it was, her arrogance, her underestimation, that fatal flaw I had been waiting for. I walked past the display of heirlooms, noting the rare pieces, the ones she prized most. Each had a story, each had leverage, each could become a tool in the silent game I was orchestrating. Fa had cornered me again. "Careful," he warned, tone low. "You stare playing with fire." "And you?" I asked, voice soft, deliberate. "Playing with me?" His smirk faltered. "Not much, but enough." I spent the afternoon weaving connections, securing quiet allies, collectors who could be nudged, staff who could be observed, even small favors I offered strategically, building a subtle web of influence. By the time the first bids began, I had mapped it all, every player, every motivation, every hidden desire. I was no longer just hurt or angry. I was methodical, patient, dangerous. And Layla, she had no idea. Her laughter echoed through the hall as the auctioneer called out the first lots. I watched her, radiant and confident, every movement calculated for the audience. But underneath, the cracks were there, the tension was there, and I could see it, clear as day. I whispered to myself, letting the thrill seep through my veins. Everything you built, every ounce of pride. I stepped in rewriting the rules. A minor misstep, a piece slightly miscatalogued, a bitter distracted made her flinch. Just a fraction. And I noted it, stored it, perfect. I walked through the crowd, calm, smiling, observant. Each interaction, a thread in the tapestry I was weaving. And beneath it all, a pulse of vindication surged through me. By the end of the day, the storm I had built was invisible, quiet, inevitable, and one day soon, she would see it. I leaned against a balcony railing, notebook in hand, recording details, noting her reactions, memorizing every movement. A single smile, a flicker of irritation, a raised eyebrow, each was ammunition. And I whispered into the quiet of the room, "The auction begins. But your downfall, my control, that sip's only just starting." The room smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume. Crystal glasses caught the light and scattered it like tiny stars across the polished floors. Guests chattered quietly, but I didn't hear them. Not really. My focus was sharp, predatory. Every detail, every movement, every whispered word was accounted for. Aunt Layla floated through the room, radiant, laughing, utterly confident. She didn't see me. Not yet. Not like this. "You're early," she said to a collector passing me. Her voice rang with elegance, authority, and that familiar arrogance. I stayed silent, a polite smile in place, but inside, my pulse was a drum. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Years of humiliation, months of planning, weeks of silent networking, everything came down to this. The auctioneer stepped up, clearing his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, we begin with our first lot." I let my gaze sweep over the items. Fine china, gilded silver, ornate jewelry. But my target was the crown jewel, the heirloom she treasured most. A delicate locket, engraved, priceless in sentiment if not in gold. She had flaunted it countless times, her laughter echoing through our memories. Today that laugh would die. I gave a small nod to the man I had arranged. The anonymous bidder, subtle signals, hidden gestures. He understood perfectly. Every penny, every raise, every slight pause. The rhythm was ours. The bidding began. Low murmurs, polite gestures. I watched Lila closely. Her confidence was unshakable until the first hint of resistance. 10,000, someone said. 15, another called. My heart kicked. I let the tension build. No sudden movements, no obvious interference, just a quiet, invisible hand guiding the numbers upward. Her brow furrowed imperceptibly. A flicker of doubt caught in the corner of my eye. 20, the anonymous bidder raised calmly. Her lips pressed together. 25, she said. Her voice clipped, controlled. I felt it, the shift, that unshakable control, her public dominance, wavering. 30, the bidder replied. Aunt Layla's hand trembled slightly as she signaled. Her face, the mask of perfect poise, betrayed a flash of panic. The room didn't notice, but I did. Every micro-expression, every twitch, recorded. 40, she spat, voice low, forced. The whispers began then, subtle, almost inaudible, guests sensing tension, the rhythm of power shifting. I stayed on the sidelines, a quiet predator. 50, the anonymous bidder said. Her face went pale, a bead of sweat at her temple. She opened her mouth, then paused as if realizing finally that her control was gone. 60, the bidder said. Laughter. I had expected it. But it didn't come from her. She froze, stunned, silence replacing her usual elegance. The room was electric with tension. Whispers rippled like water over stone. Aunt Leela's eyes scanned the room frantically. She sought allies, reassurance, some sign that she still held sway. There was none. I leaned against a column, notebook in hand, letting the thrill course through me, not vengeful anger, not childish glee, satisfaction, poetic, perfect. 70, the bid came again, She swallowed, lips thin, jaw tight. 80, she forced out, her voice brittle. The room shifted around her. Conversation stuttered. Eyes flicked from her to the auctioneer. Everything she had built, control, poise, power, crumbling under the weight of subtle orchestration. Sold, the auctioneer finally declared. My anonymous bidder had won. The silence was deafening. A single gasp, then another. Whispers collided, like branches in a storm. Aunt Leila's hand trembled as she reached for the locket. It wasn't hers anymore. My orchestrated wave of influence, patience, and strategy had removed it from her grasp. She looked at me then, or at least in my direction. Her eyes burned confusion and rage, mixing in a way I had never seen before. You, she started, voice low, but no words could follow. I smiled faintly, calm, collected. Hello, Aunt Lila, I said softly, letting the words hang, polite, cold, final. Her laughter, the weapon she had wielded against me, gone, replaced by stunned silence. Vulnerability exposed like a wound. You, you can't, she stammered, searching for composure for the floor beneath her to stabilize. There was none. I shook my head. I told you, actions speak louder than words, and sometimes silence can be the loudest. The irony was delicious. She had publicly humiliated me, dismissed me, laughed at me, and now, she was the one exposed, vulnerable, powerless. Guests whispered. Some nodded subtly, recognizing the finesse of the maneuver. Others glanced at me, curious. Few realized the full orchestration behind the silent strike. Foe had appeared beside her, smirking briefly, then faltering as he realized even his arrogance couldn't undo the tide I had built. You, how, she finally managed, voice trembling. Patience, observation, strategy, I said softly, all the things you underestimated. Her hands clenched, knuckles white, the perfect public image cracking under invisible pressure. Every guest present saw her grace falter, every micro-expression recorded in their minds. I didn't gloat, not openly, not foolishly. I let the silence, the tension, the understated chaos do the work. You've changed, she said finally, voice tight, almost whispering. Everyone changes, I replied almost kindly. Some of us, quietly, methodically, until the world has no choice but to notice. I stepped back into the shadows, notebook clutched loosely, adrenaline mingling with calm satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge screaming out loud. It was poetry, deliberate, precise. Her control was gone. Her laughter, the weapon she had once used to wound me, replaced with the starkest vulnerability I had ever seen. And I felt the weight of triumph, sweet and patient, running through me. The room hummed, whispers growing, people talking about the sale, the tension, the unexpected result. No one knew the full story. No one saw the months of planning, the hidden threads I had pulled, but it didn't matter. The effect was perfect. I glanced at the locket, now in the hands of the anonymous bidder. Not mine, not publicly. But the point was made. Control shifted, power balanced in the subtlest, most devastating way. And in that moment I realized the world had watched, the world had whispered, and Aunt Layla had finally been undone. Quietly, perfectly, silently. I exhaled, a slow, deliberate release. Satisfaction, bitter and sweet, curling through me. The storm was over, the strike complete, and I had won. The house was quieter now. The echoes of the auction lingered in the hallways, a soft reminder of what had passed. I wandered through the rooms, notebook in hand, tracing the faint outlines of the plans I had executed. Each corner, each whisper of memory, it all felt surreal. Sarah appeared first, leaning casually against the doorway. You did it, she said, voice low, half awe, half relief. I did, I admitted, a faint smile tugging at my lips, but the satisfaction wasn't loud. It was quiet, deep, controlled. You didn't just win, she continued, stepping closer. You made her see, really see, and no one else could have done it like this. I shrugged lightly. I didn't want to humiliate her. I wanted her to understand, that's all. Understand? Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow. She probably feels exposed, vulnerable. I mean, you left her speechless. Exactly, I said, letting the words hang. The irony was bittersweet. I didn't gloat, not openly, It wasn't about laughter anymore. It was about clarity, justice, measured and silent. Mom arrived next, sitting across from me with her hands folded. "You Seb changed," she said softly. "I see it, that quiet strength you carry now. You Seb grown through all of this pain, humiliation, and turned it into something else." I looked down at my hands, tracing the lines that had once trembled with fear, with doubt. "I learned," I said simply, "how to hold myself steady, how to watch, listen, act. I was weak once, but not anymore." Mom smiled, bittersweet. "It's steps strange. I always knew you had it in you, but I didn't stet realize how far you stet go. And yet, Isim's proud, proud you didn't stet lose yourself in anger. You kept your mind, your heart." I nodded slowly. Anger was just the starting point. I needed it to fuel me, but I had to be careful, calculated, patient, and it worked. Sarah leaned closer, whispering as if sharing a secret. "Do you feel different, now that it steps over?" I thought for a moment, letting the tension drain from my shoulders. "Yes," I admitted. "And no, different. Because I Seb's seen what I Seb's capable of. And no, because some part of me knows the cost. The solitude, the planning, the waiting, it changes you." We were silent for a while, letting the weight of the events settle outside. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows through the windows. Shadows that felt like reminders of the past I had endured, and the power I had gained. "I saw her today," Sarah said finally, voice quiet. "Aunt Layla. She looked human, vulnerable, fragile almost. Not just the Layla we all feared." "Yes," I said, letting a soft exhale escape. "I wanted her to see herself too. Not the untouchable woman she pretends to be. She Sep's human, flawed, real." Mom reached over, placing her hand on mine. "And you Sep embraced your own humanity. Scarred, yes, but stronger, smarter, careful, you Sep risen." I let a faint smile curl. "I am no longer her victim," I said softly, almost to myself. "Not ever again. The laughter, the dismissals, all of that is behind me. I Seb taken it, reshaped it, turned it into something mine." Sarah smiled, a mix of pride and awe. "So what now?" I paused, watching the fading light glint off the notebook in my hands. Each page held a lesson, a strategy, a silent victory. "Now," I said slowly, "I live. I move forward, carefully, strategically, but freely. I Sep learned to trust my instincts, my patience, my own strength." Mom squeezed my hand. "And that Sep's all you need. You Sep turned pain into power without losing yourself. That Sep's rare." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "It's Step's quiet power. Subtle, patient. The kind that doesn't need applause. The kind that lasts." Sarah laughed softly. "I guess some things are better that way. Quiet victories. Silent justice." I looked out the window, watching the evening settle across the city. "Exactly," I said. "Silent justice, bittersweet, but ours. Mine. And I can finally breathe." For the first time in years, I felt whole. Scarred, yes, but unbroken. Vulnerable, yes, but strong. The humiliation, the doubt, the betrayal, they had become fuel. Each lesson, a building block. Each setback, a sharpening of resolve. I exhaled again, slower this time, letting the final weight drop. Aunt Layla would remain part of my history, a mirror of everything I had overcome, but I no longer needed her approval. I no longer needed her laughter, or her dismissal, or her shadow. I was me. Scarred, yes. Empowered, absolutely. Victorious, silently, irrevocably. And as I closed the notebook and set it aside, I realized the story wasn't just about revenge, it was about transformation, about understanding my worth, about quiet triumph. And for the first time, the reflection staring back at me in the mirror was not fear, not doubt, but strength. I smiled, faint but resolute. "This is only the beginning," I whispered. The city outside oblivious, the night quiet, my power quietly settling like dust around me. Months later, I walked into the charity gala, the soft hum of conversations and clinking glasses surrounding me like a familiar cloak. Crystal chandeliers reflected light across the room, glinting like tiny reminders of wealth, influence, and all the games people played to hold them. I moved through the crowd, notes of laughter and polite chatter brushing past me, but I wasn't part of their rhythm anymore. I had my own cadence now, quiet, controlled, deliberate, and then I saw her. Aunt Layla, polished, elegant, her smile stretched across her face, flawless as ever. But the fire, the arrogance, the edge that had once cut through me, gone. It was polite, empty, perfunctory. I sipped my drink, slow, deliberate, savoring the moment. She didn't notice me, or maybe she did, but there was nothing left to fear, nothing left to control. I heard her voice laugh lightly across the room. It carried, but it didn't reach me. Not anymore. She looks different, Sarah murmured, coming up beside me. I smiled faintly, not turning. Different. I agreed. Stronger, quiet, patient. You've changed her without even touching her, Sarah said. I shrugged. A small, almost imperceptible movement. Sometimes the most powerful strikes are invisible, I murmured. No confrontation, no scene, just presence and patience. Across the room, I could see the ripple of whispers. Guests sensing subtle shifts in power, noticing without knowing why. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to act. The echoes of the auction, the silent strike I had orchestrated, lingered like a shadow across every interaction she had. I let my gaze linger for a beat longer, letting satisfaction settle quietly inside me. Invisible victories. Quiet dominance. Her polite nod passed over me again. I returned it, faint and composed. And then I moved on, my heels clicking softly against the marble, a rhythm all my own. Sometimes I thought as I disappeared into the crowd, silence is louder than applause. And tonight? I was deafening.